Hi, everybody. So last time we talked about the circulatory system, movement of materials to, from, and within cells. And we primarily talked about the materials that are needed by cells for cell respiration and the materials produced by cells by cell respiration, and how the circulatory system transports that. The circulatory system is made up of the heart, the blood vessels, and all the fluid that goes through it, the blood. And that's what we're going to focus on today, is the blood. And we have here a picture of a smear of blood that is shown on a microscope. And these are the various parts. These little red circles are the red blood cells. The space in between looks like nothing, but it's not nothing. It's one of the most important parts of the blood. That's the fluid called plasma that carries most everything. The red blood cells carry primarily oxygen. The plasma carries sugar and hormones and enzymes and all sorts of things, different wastes. It carries a lot of the carbon dioxide. So a lot of the stuff is in the plasma. When we have these little specks, you might see them right there. Those are called platelets. They're for making sure you clot your blood. So if a person has trouble producing platelets or has a problem with the enzymes that are made by platelets, they may have a disease called hemophilia. That is, they can't stop from bleeding, even from very small cuts. And then we have these big purple blobs, which are oddly called white blood cells, not purple blood cells. They're white blood cells. They generally have a nucleus. You can see them. They're much larger than these little red blood cells that don't have a nucleus. And white blood cells are for fighting infection. So let's get that in the notes. So we have the plasma. That is the fluid that is drawn as the background in our view. And it carries most everything. So without the plasma, you would not be alive. You're carrying water, and you're carrying all of your nutrients and all the hormones that travel around your body, that send messages around the body. All that's in the plasma. We have the small red blood cells. They're very small. They don't have a nucleus. Once they're produced, the nucleus is destroyed, making more room for a protein inside of them called hemoglobin. Hemoglobin, a protein, carries oxygen really effectively. So it's the red blood cells. When the blood goes by your lungs, it's the red blood cells that pick up the oxygen that's diffusing out of your lungs into your blood. So the blood comes by, the oxygen leaves your lungs, goes into those red blood cells, and those red blood cells carry that oxygen, moves around the body till it gets to the smallest blood vessels called capillaries that go in between every single little cell, and the oxygen diffuses out of the red blood cell through the plasma into the cell next to it, the body cell, and brings the oxygen to that body cell that way. We have little pieces of cells called platelets. They're for blood clotting. And then we have white blood cells that fight infection. And there are a couple of kinds of white blood cells. We have phagocytes that actually eat the enemy. White blood cells are soldiers, and they kill viruses and bacteria that invade. Viruses and bacteria are called pathogens. They are things that cause disease that we can be infected with. And these pathogens, we have different ways our white blood cells deal with them. White blood cells can eat the enemy. Pretty brutal. Those are called phagocytes. And then we have lymphocytes that produce something called antibodies against anything that it doesn't recognize, that is invaders, that have proteins on them called antigens. We'll talk about that in more detail next time.